So a couple of disclaimers, I guess, about my talk. The first is I hardly ever talk these days without asking for money at the end, so if I can help myself, I'll try to resist. The other is when I was looking at how this talk needed to be structured over the weekend, I had just opened a data room looking at about 3,000 pages of data, clinical data, on a deal that we're thinking about doing that could transform our company. But 3,000 pages of data, when you're the one guy reading it, is a little bit overwhelming. So I was going into self-analytical mode when you wanted to know what was inspiring me and why am I doing what I'm doing. But I will tell you this, so if I don't make it all the way to the end, this is really all you need to remember. The company that I've started is called Therapeutics, and it's making drugs, legally, diabetes drugs. And it is a company, so it's a business, we want to make money, but the real driver, I think, is that we're looking to make a difference. And you don't try to do something as difficult as drug development unless you really want to see something happen. But anyway, again, I was looking at 3,000 pages of clinical data, and I was like, why am I here? Why am I here tonight? And I am co-founder and CEO of Therapeutics, so I am responsible for the mess that I've gotten myself into. And I've taken sort of a winding road. I started out as a scientist, and I went over fairly early on in the game to the dark side, as they say in academia, and I went to a large pharmaceutical company, realized that that was pretty boring, really, because they're actually looking at yesterday's news. So I moved on from there to do a startup out of the ANU also, a different startup that was successful in other ways and not in others, and I learned a lot. But the biggest thing I learned is that I really loved trying to move things from the bench to the bedside, as they had. And it sounds easy and that sounds great, but it is hard. But that's what I like about it, and I've been doing it for about 20 years now. So when you're trying to bridge this gap, and it's research to business, but in particular medical research to the bedside, there's this term valley of death, where you go from a great idea and you start moving it toward the clinic. And it's a term that I think might be used for a number of reasons in venture capital, but when you're doing drug development, it's really, really something you take at heart. Not only are you dealing with a very difficult technical issue that needs a lot of funding, but you're dealing with people's lives. This isn't a widget that you're trying to spit out. It's actually trying to treat something that people need, that are desperate for new treatments, and they're putting their lives in your hand in many ways. And this valley is really littered with a lot of good ideas and good companies, and especially in drug development, it can take 20 years and $2 billion per drug. Only one out of around 10,000 drugs that are ever discovered make it to market. So there's a huge attrition rate. But I like it. It's scary, it's exciting, and it's a great place to learn, and it's a little bit like a video game. I mean, you be careful, and you try to do the best you can. You may fail, but you can do it again, and you learn from your failures. And this valley is really where Therapeutics is, and it is where great ideas become great drugs. So this is where we're at. And what we're really trying to do, I think, is unique. And I think we're getting a lot of interest from international pharmaceutical companies because of the uniqueness of the science. So what we're trying to do is not just prevent diabetes or stop the aspects of diabetes that cause elevated glucose, which is the definition of diabetes. We're actually trying to prevent and treat the disease. There are no treatments on the market currently that actually stop the disease from occurring. You can't prevent it. Insulin helps manage it. Other drugs that are available actually help insulin work better, but there is nothing that can stop the disease. And in particular in type 1 diabetes, which happens in children and young adults, it's their own immune system attacking the pancreas that actually produces insulin. There are no treatments for this disease. And so this is really what's driving us. It's a unique opportunity and it's great science, but there is absolutely nothing out there for people with type 1 diabetes. And I think the opportunity to actually make that difference at the end of the day, as I said, is driving us. And how it all comes together really, at the start, it starts with great science. And this is what was done at ANU, out of the John Curtin School. There is a need. You see patients all the time who are desperate for something so that their children don't have to, or they don't have to keep injecting themselves, and their children don't have to inject themselves 3 times a day. And there's a market need. There is nothing out there. And so making money at the end of the day is actually what the market drives, but the reason that we sit and look through 2,000 pages of clinical data is because we hope to make a difference.